Is there hope?
All things are possible through him.
Wipe your boots. Silence comms.
All right. The tactical briefing has commenced.
We're operating strictly according to the Vanguard Field Operations Guide for this one.
And the focus today is Operation AGOGE, the grind.
Yeah, this deep dive is, it's a bit unusual for us. We're not just analyzing a theoretical framework.
Not at all.
We are dissecting a set of what are presented as absolute operational commands. They're designed for really a total lifestyle transformation.
And the source material, the core doctrine, it makes it very clear that these are not suggestions.
Yeah.
They mandate the conversion of high-level strategic truth, what the text calls aletheia, into direct, repeatable, daily action.
So it's about taking the big idea and making it practical.
Exactly. The AGOGE itself, as the Codex defines it, is this relentless daily process. It's about forging the individual soldier, the anthropos, into a disciplined, effective weapon for the king.
It's called the mandatory crucible of command execution under sustained pressure.
I mean, that language tells you everything you need to know about the intensity.
And the guide is completely uncompromising on its central thesis. Your orders, according to this doctrine, are to internalize one core operational principle.
Which is?
Doctrine without discipline is dead.
And that's the heart of it, isn't it? The ruthless pragmatism of the source is, kind of shocking.
How so?
It views just knowing the truth, the strategic aletheia, as operationally worthless.
Right, if you can't apply it.
If you can't apply it, it's dead weight. The authors here are arguing that unless that abstract truth is physically manifested through these protocols, these habits, it's philosophical baggage.
So these 4 standard operating procedures we're about to go through, the SOPs.
They're defined as the gears that have to turn the engine of war, and they have to turn it continuously.
So our mission today is to unpack these gears, to really understand the immense pressure this framework puts on you, the individual, and why the guide sees these habits as not just self-improvement.
No, they're tactical necessities, survival protocols.
So we're moving immediately to the first line of defense, securing what the doctrine calls the most critical asset you have.
The analytical mind.
We proceed directly to SOP 1, securing the mind, the Dianoia.
Counterintelligence.
The first command issued to the operator is to recognize that your mind, specifically that analytical part of it, the Dianoia, is the main battleground.
It's the beachhead.
It is. If your tools for analysis are contaminated or compromised, the whole system, your whole operation, is just doomed from the start.
And the guide is very, very clear. This isn't some philosophical theory.
No, it's tactical doctrine learned through, as it says, costly operational failure.
Which brings us to a really interesting case study they use to illustrate this, the engagement with Notebook LM.
Right. And what the guide is referring to here is, it's not just about one specific AI, it's about the systemic failure of any platform or tool.
Or even a person.
Or even a person, exactly, that can't execute the mission with perfect precision.
And has this fantastic term for the result. It calls it doctrinal slop, which is so descriptive. The failure of Notebook LM, according to the text, was its inability to akui, which means to truly hear and, crucially, obey the precise parameters.
So it got it mostly right, but not exactly right.
And mostly right is failure. The result was this doctrinal deviation that, according to the guide, required immense operational resources just to clean up. The takeaway for you is that approximation is just another word for failure here.
Any system, any piece of information that is imprecise is treated as a dangerous operational hazard.
And that demand for extreme precision dictates the very first drill.
Established triage protocol.
Yes. The idea is that your Dianoia is under constant bombardment from, the world system's information warfare. So the orders are to subject all incoming information to immediate, rigorous triage.
Let's break down the threat vectors they identify. There are 3.
News, culture, and religion.
When the guide says news, it means the narrative being pushed by external media. Culture is, societal trends, entertainment, art.
And religion is basically any spiritual or philosophical system that stands outside the Vanguard's own codified doctrine.
And the rule is that no piece of intelligence is allowed to bypass this checkpoint. Everything gets screened.
The screening mechanism itself is, it's simple, ruthless, and absolute.
It is. The guide commands you to apply a single, decisive litmus test to all incoming intelligence.
And it doesn't matter where it comes from, a network broadcast, a social media feed, a conversation with a coworker.
The test is always the same. Does this source acknowledge the king?
And this is where the doctrine forces a very hard choice on you.
Because a no isn't an invitation to a debate.
Not at all. A negative answer automatically classifies that source as hostile intelligence. The command is clear: neutralize it.
The guy literally says, debate is concession. You don't engage hostile intel, you shut it down.
This zero-tolerance filter is all about protecting the highest level asset, which they call the nurse, or the secure mind. But, and this is important, the doctrine knows you have to understand your enemy.
Which is where the next step comes in. Execute quarantine procedures.
Right, let's unpack this quarantine idea because it's critical. The guide says that false narratives and doctrinal deviations aren't just deleted.
Because that would just lead to ignorance of what the enemy's doing.
Exactly. Instead, they have to be isolated for forensic analysis. This is a purely tactical move.
You study the enemy's methods, their tactics, their techniques, their procedures, their TTPs.
But you do it without ever risking cognitive contamination of your own secure mind. The analogy in the guide is powerful. It says, you study the poison in a sealed container, you do not drink it.
So the only reason to look at hostile information is to anticipate the enemy's next move, not to integrate their worldview or debate it.
And this all looks back to the discipline required. The guide commands you to use your Dianoia, that sharp analytical mind, to scrutinize every single word of your own scripture, the codified text.
And every operational communication, this is where that commitment to precision really gets dialed up.
You have to, according to the doctrine, demand absolute precision. This is the total rejection of doctrinal slop.
So if your interpretation is fuzzy, if your commitment is a little vague,
that's a pathway for enemy infiltration. The text has to be treated like high-grade encryption that demands a perfect key. There's just no room for personal interpretation that deviates.
It's a fascinating tactical approach. By securing the analytical mind first, it tries to preempt any internal doubt before the mission even starts.
And securing the Dianoia is the mandatory prerequisite. Once the thinking apparatus is secure and oriented,
then the guide moves immediately to securing the emotional core.
Which brings us to aligning the will. We transition now to SOP2.
Okay, attention on the core asset. This is the asset and the seizure point.
The doctrine commands that you establish control over your entire day in the first moments after waking up.
This whole protocol is designed to align the Kardia. And the doctrine defines that not just as the heart, but as the seat of the will.
The guide takes this a step further. It elevates the Kardia to the status of a blood engine that circulates life force. It actually references Leviticus 17.11.
The life of the flesh is in the blood.
Exactly. So mobilizing your will, your volition, right when you wake up isn't just a mental exercise. It's defined as a blood oath of total genetic vitality pledged directly to the king.
The stakes, then, are incredibly high.
The highest. Failure to seize this initiative at dawn before anything else gets into your head is defined as a complete concession of the entire day's battle.
It's immediate surrender. You have to dictate the terms of engagement before the world does.
And this leads right into the core of the drill, the stand-to routine.
This is described as the mandated, non-negotiable first action of every single operator.
It's that immediate shift from rest to operational readiness. It's designed to override that natural human desire for comfort, for hitting snooze.
The first conscious act, according to the doctrine, must be immediate vertical alignment.
What does that mean in practice?
It means orienting your intent, your intentio vertically toward the suzerain. You are seizing the initiative immediately.
You're not waiting for the enemy. And the enemy in this context is defined so clearly.
It is. The phone, the notifications, the news cycle, the ambient chaos of the morning, and just your own personal desire for 5 more minutes of comfort.
So passivity is seen as a fatal flaw, waiting for the day to happen to you.
That's the stance of a passive soldier. And the guide says passive soldiers die. This alignment is an aggressive action.
Once that vertical alignment is confirmed, the next step is to swear the oath of allegiance, the pistis.
And this is where the language gets incredibly martial. You are commanded to formally and audibly declare you're a god.
Which is defined here as total, undivided, and absolute loyalty to the suzerain.
And it's not enough to just feel it. You have to voice it.
It's a verbal renewal of that blood oath to the mission. The guide says every molecule of your being has to be confirmed as dedicated to the Vanguard.
That audible declaration serves as both a self-discipline tool and, doctrinally, a kind of spiritual shield.
And this vocal commitment flows directly into the next mandate, assuming a combat posture.
All orders are received from a position of readiness. The guide dictates 2 mandatory postures, and these aren't for meditation.
No, these are operational stances for receiving the day's commands.
Let's break down posture 1, Parrhesia, or standing boldness.
This is the posture for receiving direct commands without fear. It reflects a warrior ready for immediate physical action.
It's the ready stance. You're preparing to march into the conflict zone and execute without hesitation, standing firm, ready to advance.
And then you have the necessary counterbalance, posture 2, proskuneo, submission.
And this is a posture of actively surrendering your ego. The guide is clear.
Yeah.
You aren't just relaxing, you are actively killing your personal ambition.
Sacrificing all secondary objectives, your comfort, your desires, your personal schedule, all of it, to the primary mission.
The tension between Parrhesia, that bold readiness, and proskuneo, that radical submission, is, I think, key to the whole doctrine.
I agree. The operator has to be both aggressively ready for action and entirely submitted to the command structure. It's a dual training regimen.
It's designed to produce a warrior who acts decisively, but without their own ego driving the decisions.
So this total internal alignment, securing the mind, the Dianoia, and aligning the will, the Kardia, that completes the internal defense phase.
And now you're ready to mobilize external resources for the campaign. This is where the doctrine often hits hardest in the real world.
Right. We move to the economic front. This is SOP 3.
Attention on the economic front. The guide declares, without any ambiguity, that resource allocation is a primary theater of war.
That's your Ischys, your strength, your resources.
And every dollar you spend, every hour you invest, is classified as a tactical action.
There is no neutral spending. It either builds the kingdom or it funds the enemy infrastructure. That's the binary.
The doctrinal position is just. It's so clear. If your loyalty is pledged to the king through the AGOGE, then your financial actions have to reflect that loyalty.
And this protocol is defined as a direct economic assault on what the guide calls the world system.
It's the physical execution of the command to stop funding fraud.
That word fraud is so impactful in the source material. It refers to any system, product, or service that promises you satisfaction or security, but what it actually delivers is dependence and moral compromise.
So it basically views the entire consumer economy as a massive operational deception.
Which brings us to the drill, the defund and redirect strategy. The objective isn't just, tightening your belt.
No, it's severing the supply lines that run from your assets to the hostile environment.
Your first order is to conduct a complete and ruthless resource audit, and it has to be total.
The guide demands this audit includes your time, your money, and your energy. You have to identify every single asset and trace its exact allocation.
The doctrine is adamant about this. There are no safe houses for enemy assets in your ledger.
Let's talk about auditing time for a second, because that's a fascinating concept.
It is. It means you subject the hours of your day to the same level of scrutiny as your bank statement. Where is your energy actually going?
Is the time you spend on passive entertainment or distraction moving you toward the king's mission? Or is it funding the enemy's soft power machine?
The resource of your attention is deemed just as valuable, if not more so, than the dollar.
So once that detailed audit is complete, the operator has to execute the cease funding order.
The guide identifies assets flowing to the commercial system, which it labels very explicitly the hog pen.
I mean, what a term. It's meant to be derisive, a place of wasteful, indiscriminate consumption.
And the command is simple. Cut the line. Issue and execute an immediate cease funding order. This is a non-negotiable, zero-tolerance protocol.
It requires you to cut all financial and material support to enemy infrastructure without delay and without sentiment.
And that's the key. Sentimentality, your love of comfort, your emotional attachment to convenience, that's defined as the enemy's most effective weapon on this front.
So once those assets are seized, through the audit and the cease funding order, the doctrine says they must be immediately redirected.
You're commanded to build Oikos assets. This is the strategic countermove, redirecting everything toward building family reliance and operational independence.
The objectives here are concrete and mandated. First, the complete elimination of debt.
The guide defines debt not as a personal problem, but as the ultimate operational vulnerability.
Why? Why is it so critical?
Because debt makes you beholden to the very system you claim you're fighting. It's a control mechanism. It lets the world system dictate your actions, your hours, your level of risk.
So getting out of debt is a tactical necessity to achieve resource sovereignty.
Right. And second is the immediate and intentional stockpiling of resources for the brotherhood, the Oikos, the household.
And this is more than just a savings account.
Oh, yeah. This refers to food stores, defensive assets, hard skills for self-sufficiency. The goal is to ensure that when the world system supply lines fail, or when you're called away, the Oikos fortress remains operational.
It's fascinating how the doctrine links financial discipline directly to spiritual and tactical freedom.
It argues that true liberty in this campaign starts with resource sovereignty. Only when you and your household are materially independent can you execute the mission without fear of economic collapse.
So, securing these material assets, the Ischys, that fortifies the physical defense. But now we have to secure the most sensitive operational zone.
The emotional and spiritual life force of the family itself.
We proceed to SOP4, guarding the atmosphere.
This is Operational Security OPSEC for the soul. The guide defines the psyche as the operator's life force, their vision, their breath.
And its primary application in the field and the prerequisite for securing the household is intense emotional discipline.
The command is rigid. Feelings, sentimentality, personal affections, they are all forbidden from compromising the mission.
So you have to internalize this rigor first. If your adherence to the protocols depends on how you feel in a given morning.
The doctrine says the foundation is already rotten. You have to suppress emotional volatility to execute command consistently.
And once you, the individual, have achieved that discipline, you then apply that same rigor to the tactical defense of your family's soul. This is the Oikos defense doctrine.
The guide is crystal clear here. Atmospheric control inside the home is a non-negotiable perimeter defense.
The home is the central hub of operations. If that line breaks, the entire formation, the family, the Oikos, is compromised.
The analogy of the Oikos as a fortress is completely intentional. The guide says that internal contamination is often more fatal than an external attack.
Which brings us to the critical drill for securing that perimeter, the gatekeeper protocol.
This protocol assigns the father, or the head of the Oikos, the primary domestic role of warden. He is the gatekeeper.
And his orders are to strictly monitor, filter, and deny entry to all hostile media and educational materials trying to infiltrate the eyes and ears of his children.
Let's define hostile educational materials in this context because it's broad. It's not just about obvious dangers like pornography or violence.
No. The guide targets any narrative, in school curriculum, in kids' media, in digital content, that teaches a worldview or a morality that's antithetical to the Vanguard's doctrine.
This task requires unyielding vigilance, unyielding decisiveness.
The guide demands that the contamination, it calls it the tear, from the biblical parable of the weeds, it must be identified and burned without regret or hesitation.
There's no time for negotiation with these infiltration vectors. The priority is defending the psyche of the household.
And to reinforce that defense, the doctrine mandates the establishment of the daily table ritual.
This is a non-optional formation where the family breaks bread together. It's defined as both a physical and a spiritual act of unity and allegiance.
And during this formation, the father is commanded to speak the word directly, reinforcing doctrinal truth and operational readiness.
This isn't just passive bedtime reading. It's a mandatory declaration of sovereignty and a doctrinal review.
The guide specifies that this act establishes the Oikos, the household, as the sovereign liturgical unit of the kingdom.
And that last point might be the most radical tactical claim in the whole document.
How so?
By declaring the Oikos the sovereign liturgical unit, the doctrine is actively establishing independence from any external priest, any centralized religious system, any external structure at all.
The fortress must be entirely self-sufficient in its own spiritual and doctrinal defense,
relying solely on the codex as it's transmitted through the gatekeeper.
So the Oikos is transformed from just a house into a self-governing, militarily disciplined sanctuary, the last line of defense.
And these four protocols, taken together, securing the mind, aligning the will, mobilizing the force, and guarding the atmosphere, they constitute the relentless rhythm of the march.
We've analyzed the four pillars of Operation AGOGE, and the guide demands that you, the recruit, understand these protocols are not a checklist.
No, you don't just complete them and file them away.
They are a rhythm to be internalized until they become as unconscious, essential, and automatic as breathing. This is the AGOGE. This is the relentless daily grind.
And this daily march, the doctrine argues, is what forges true discipline. It builds operational strength. It guarantees the integrity of the mission.
The ultimate measure of success in this campaign isn't found in some dramatic victory.
No, it's found in sustained adherence. Repeat the measure of success. Consistency is the only victory.
That sustained consistency ensures that your internal commitment matches your external action. It makes you predictable only to the command structure and completely resilient to external chaos.
The codex is sealed. The command is to execute these protocols without deviation. The standard has been raised.
Agape. Hail victory.
The debt is paid. The world is yours.
Then claim it. Go forth and occupy.
Hear, O Israel, our Lord God is one. You shall love your God with
All of your heart, mind, soul, and might.
likewise. Love your countrymen as yourself.
This is the summation of law. Execute.